The definition of conviction is a firmly held belief. Leadership looks different for each person, but every leader has strong convictions that pave the way for how they guide their people. Whether you're an experienced leader, a current leader, a novice leader, or a soon-to-be leader, this podcast is a must for you. Through this show, you will hear leaders share their convictions, the struggles they face, and the challenges they have overcome by staying true to their convictions. Leadership can be hard and it can be lonely. I aim to connect you with leaders who have walked the journey and want to show others the way. This is Beau Vincent, and you're listening to The Conviction of a Leader. Welcome back to The Conviction of a Leader, and I'm here in person with Brandon von Almen. Brandon, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks so much, man. It's been a while, and what's this been a year or two since we've done this?
I think it's been about a year, yeah. But you know what? You are the first guest to come back on the second season that was on the first season. So congrats,
Man, I'm honored.
Thank
I'm
you.
privileged.
Yeah, we can touch each other. We're not, remote.
Yeah,
Feels a
I'm
little
okay with
different,
that.
doesn't it?
It does feel different.
So listen, I'm going to introduce you to all the listeners of the podcast to make sure that they remember, but also know who you are. Brandon von Almen is a great friend, great leader. He also is the sales manager and a producing sales manager of a cross-country mortgage franchise out of Worcester, Ohio. He has 4 branches with 19 producing mortgage or loan originators. Also have, processors, loan originator assistants. I mean, it's a big production. And Brandon's been with Cross Country Mortgage in the industry for how long now?
Been in the industry for 13 years now. We've been with Cross Country about a year and a half.
Right. I mean, a year and a half already.
It was
Crazy.
quick. It went quick.
That went fast.
It was last February we started to make the transition, and we're into May already.
Wow. So tell me this. How did you do last year?
It was interesting. The market has, obviously changed, and interest rates are up and home values are up, and a lot of things are going on, especially with a transition from a mortgage company out of Salt Lake City into Cross Country Mortgage.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. So we had our ups and downs. We finished strong. The transition is always difficult for people, but Cross Country helped us transition well. They have a great team and great resources, great staff to support us through the transition. Without their support, I think we would have had some trouble. They have a lot of technology involved. They have more programs than we had before. So overall, the transition was a lot. It was overwhelming, but we prepared our staff for it, and we hit it head on.
Sweet. I know you guys have transitioned well, especially with your clients. You've taken, great care of them. Tell me about, like, from a results standpoint, where was 2023 for you?
2023 was obviously down from 2022. I'm not ashamed to say that. If there's not many people in this, not many people in this industry that weren't the last couple years, 2020 and 2021 were unique. Yeah. There were some great things that happened in those times, but also it set us up to put us in a position that we're in now too as well. And so, 23 was tough with the transition and how to remarket my brand and changing a company and going out and promoting myself, all the new products. So it was kind of like a start over for me, a reset. Yeah. And I did okay. I still made the goal I had to make it into the Scotsman guide. And so that was something I wanted to do, not so much just for other people, but it's a self-motivation. It's a goal that I wanted to achieve. And I don't think if you don't set the goals, what are you shooting for?
Dude, I love that you said that. It actually reminds me of something I've spoke about recently, is that there's a certain level of motivation that's like external for your family, your team, your wife, your kids, right? But there is a level of, like, when my family is all good, because you over provide, if we're being honest. So you provide more than they need, their necessities, right? So when you get to that point, what drives you from they're taken care of now to where I go to hit the Scotsman guide. So what's that motivation like? Where's it come from for
Yeah,
you?
that's a drive to just want to be successful.
Yeah,
We've talked about this before,
yeah,
and I touched on it on the last podcast we did.
right,
Is constantly pursuing excellence. I'll
mm,
say it till the day I can't say it anymore.
right,
If you're not looking to progress, to make progress on whatever you do as a father, as a
mhm,
husband, as a employee, as a leader, as a loan officer, if you're not striving to get better, um, then you're stagnant. And when you
right.
become stagnant, negative things start to happen and impact you. The market, the interest rates are terrible. The housing market's bad. There's not a lot of homes on the inventory. If I listen to all the negative stuff that's going on right now, I can let that affect or impact me. And so I refuse to let my environment change who I am and the motivation for what I do.
So true. I feel you on that because I've been talking to my kids, not just my team, but talking to my kids now about how your thoughts. Now, this is an old, I believe, Chinese philosopher, but I love what he said. He said, your thoughts turn into your words turn into your actions turn into your habits, then they turn into your beliefs, then they turn into your destiny. So I've been talking to my kids about just getting their mindset wrapped around positivity and believing that they can actually achieve what they want to achieve in life. Because we know, just like you, I think that when I set a goal for people, a lot of times their first thought is like, I don't know, almost negativity right away. So, and then if they're doing habits and procedures
Yeah.
to achieve that goal, most people miss their goal. Would you agree?
Oh yeah,
The
that's
average person misses
I
their goal.
sometimes I feel like I set goals that are unachievable,
Yeah,
but and sometimes I do miss them. I've missed them before. I missed it last year
yeah,
to where I wanted. I've got my basic goal, but there were some outlining goals that I had to try to overachieve, and I missed them. But I think a key word that you mentioned is habits,
yes.
and I'm going through a book right now called Habits of the Household.
Oh,
I'm working
never
with
heard of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and so it's a Christian based book about just setting good habits in your household, whether it's eating dinner together, tucking your kids into bed every night, praying with your kids before they go off to school, creating habits as a parent
I like
to
that.
lead your families, to lead your family and your kids well.
Huh.
And there's even things in there too about leading your spouse. And so we're going through that right now as a couple, and it's really enlightened me on
Yeah,
how habits create consistency,
yeah,
and create consistency also creates stability.
nice.
And so that's huge for me. Stability and consistency are things I'm working on
Yeah.
to try to consistently be better.
You know, if I had to choose an area of my life where my habits lack, it would be in leading my kids the most,
Yeah.
because a lot of the stuff that we're doing with them, and you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the first time you've ever had to deal with Gavin, your oldest.
Yeah. He's 17 and I'm still, I mean,
You have
I've never raised a 17
three
year
other
old.
boys and a
Yeah.
daughter, so he's the oldest. So when you have to deal with a 17-year-old in the way that he responds or interacts or something happens, it's your first time. So how do you can't create a habit yet because you've never dealt with
Yeah.
it.
It's
So
very
yeah,
unpredictable raising a 17-year-old, and
yeah,
especially like when they start driving. Like,
mm,
how do you handle that? How do you control it? How do you monitor it? How hard are you going to be on them?
right,
What time do they have to be home? Who's allowed in the car? Like, I'm learning all this as a father, and
right.
so, but understanding with your spouse and being on the same page and being consistent in your response.
Right. I do believe the consistency is one of the keys to success. And, you know, we were talking about working out earlier, and
Yeah.
like that's one area where I went away for a little while and then I got back into it. But I'm consistent now. Every morning I know exactly what time. It's a habit. When I go, where I go, what I do, the days of the week that I go, that I can go. Um, and then I look at work. I do the same thing on the same day every week right
Hmm.
now. I actually am down to like Monday, Wednesday, Friday is this, Tuesdays, Thursdays are this, Fridays are this, a little bit different. So, but I have those habits that I've created, and it's added to, predictability actually, like you said, consistency, predictability habits actually lead to people trusting you.
Right.
Unpredictable people are not trustworthy, are they?
Correct. No, they're
So emotional people, they're
hard
not
to
as
rely
trustworthy.
on.
Yeah.
Hard to rely on, and
Yeah.
reliability is a huge factor in me and leadership.
Right.
And so when you create those good habits, just like we talked about, going to the gym. I mean, what
Right.
is that mental impact on you
Right.
going to the gym consistency? How do you feel? What's the difference?
Right. So, I wanted to talk about a little bit different conversation this podcast, so we can dive into a couple different things. But be more than happy to go in a direction you feel
Sure.
if I spark a thought for you. So don't be afraid just speak to what comes to mind.
Sure.
So I want to talk about, what was your upbringing like in your childhood? Is there anything that like sparked you joining the military and going in a different direction as a child? Because I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was this close to going to the military, and I went through all the testing and all that, and I decided to I got a scholarship last minute. I was like, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So the initial
Yeah.
motivation was 9/11,
Mm.
right? And the initial motivation as a 21-year old male to join the military, 9/11 happened, and there was a lot of things going on in my life at that time, and a lot of inconsistency,
Yeah.
bad habits, lifestyle habits that weren't good for me, and so
Right.
that was kind of a spark or a motivation to jump into something that was more structured and give me a purpose.
Yeah.
But as a younger child, I would say, growing up was a little different to me. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. Some people may not know that, so I'm
Mm.
partial hillbilly, and
I
and
did know
so
that.
yeah, and so around the age of 4, my
Yeah.
mom and dad separated. My dad left my mom, and so me and my mom kind of had to uproot from Kentucky and move to Columbus, Ohio, and live with my grandmother and some aunts
Wow.
and some uncles. And so again, very much lack of inconsistency where I was living, changing schools every couple of years, lack of male leadership, I think was a
Yeah.
big thing for me. I never really had a male in my life until I was about 12 or 13. So about 8 to 9, 10 years of when I was hoping to be, starting to be molded into a young
Oh
man.
yeah.
I lacked that leadership and I lacked that male structure. For me, I needed that.
Mm.
And so missing out on that, um, I think really impacted kind of where I headed it to
Yeah.
in my teenage years. And so, not that my mom she was great. I mean, she was a
Of
strong woman.
course.
She was a hardworking woman. She was a
Right.
supporter. She was a provider. But it's just not the same.
I
And
I
so
totally
I needed that.
agree.
And so I think that deep down inside, I
Yeah.
think that was a passion and a motivation. And maybe that lack of structure kind of influenced me. And deep
Yeah.
down inside, had that desire for me to do something different.
Wow. So what was it like uh transitioning from Louisville to like Columbus, going from a mom and a dad household to multi-generational, no dad in the household? What were some of the biggest differences? Like,
Yeah, I don't remember a lot. That's I'm getting up there in age. I'll
yeah.
be 44 in a couple weeks,
Ooh.
but yeah, I know. I know. And so I don't remember a lot of the transition, but I do
Yeah.
remember, we had a ranch, white picket fence house, and then I
Mm.
remember moving into my grandmother's house, and we're sleeping in a 2 bedroom,
Wow.
much tighter, lower income,
Yeah.
and but I think that's the greatest part about my childhood too, is because it made me who I was. I saw my
Right.
mom work hard every day. I saw her provide every day. I saw her never complain. I saw
Right.
her never cry. She just put her head down and
Wow.
did what she had to do to be a provider.
Yeah.
And it was encouraging. It was a little different. I grew up, Louisville. I was, just starting school at that age, going to preschool and then getting into inner city schools in Columbus. It was a hard transition.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it was difficult. It was eye opening, but that's still my childhood defines who I am.
I agree. I've learned from a lot of the great leaders that I respect, look up to. It's hard to find a leader that says, "I regret this, I regret my past, or I loathe my past." They've all appreciative of their past because it's helped them get to where they're at today. And I think a little bit of like I don't want to say trauma, like stumbling blocks, tough roads,
Hmm.
they are used to propel if done correctly. And we were just talking a little bit about mindset and how you said you never heard your mom complain or cry. And that's huge in your fundamental years, is to know your mom, especially as an adult now, to realize how tough it must have been for her to not have that other person in the household. But her thoughts never turned into words that could have really soured you too.
Oh yeah, I mean,
So
you look back and now I look back and like, wow, it was way harder than I ever knew.
yeah,
And she never showed weakness.
that's
And
amazing, right?
so that's a big deal for me, and to know that. And she never showed a vulnerability. She
Yeah,
always was tough. She was always strong, and she was the one that held us together.
yeah.
And so it's always encouraging to look back and say, I didn't have a dad, but man, I had a hell of a good mom.
Nice. I love that. So why don't you tell all the listeners, remind them what branch you were in the military?
Yeah. So I was in the army. I joined right after September 11th. I got out of basic early 2002 and
Wow.
spent about 10 years in the army. I was an infantry soldier, and I did mortars, and I was an infantry guy, so I was a little bit of both. I had both designations, and loved what I did, and wouldn't take it.
Wouldn't
Wouldn't
change that.
change that. Wouldn't change that for a minute. I mean, there were some highs and there were some lows, of course,
Hmm.
but it is now created not only the man and the father and the husband I am, but the
Yeah.
leader that I am to my family and to the people around me.
I love that. So, I know the military is good at creating consistency, habits, actionable habits, but also accountability. So, one of the biggest things that leaders speak with right now, I'm doing a leadership academy,
Mhm.
and I just asked them yesterday, I said, tell me what you're struggling with the most. And I've broken leadership into three key points. There's the teach it, the training side, the lead it side, which is the modeling, the
Mhm.
behavior that you're teaching, and then the accountability, which is called expect it. So teach it, lead it, and expect it. You have to teach it, you have to model it, you have to expect and hold accountability. So it's funny because the majority of the people's struggles almost always leans towards accountability. So let's talk a little bit about how what new habits and consistency you picked up in life from the military, and then what was their accountability like? What did you learn from
Yeah, well,
accountability?
habits started right away. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as you get
You
off
don't
the
have an
bus,
option, do you?
yeah, no, it's not a request or it's not optional.
Yeah.
It's forced.
When they
Um,
ask something in the military, are they asking, like, are they asking you or are they telling you?
Yeah, they're telling you. You're
Yeah.
voluntold is what we used to call it.
Mhm.
You're voluntold to do something. There's no request there, but the
Right.
habit started right away, and so they immediately start to mold you to the culture they want.
Wow.
It starts when you get off the bus and you're in plain clothes and you've got
Yeah.
long hair, and with the haircut within the first
Take it
hour or
off.
two, it's gone, and they're breaking you down to a point to where they want the basic you. That's why I
Yeah.
think it's even
Is that
called
why
more
it's called
basic
basic?
straight.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called basic because you learn the basic fundamentals
Yeah.
of the military. But I think I've always looked at it as it put me down to the basic me, the
Oh,
plain as I can
true.
get, the plain Jane, who I am, took everything away from me
Yeah.
and made me in the most vulnerable position.
Wow.
And so that's why I've always, but it started right away. And accountability started right away in basic training. They're pushing you and they're forcing you to develop qualities that you might have not had before.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So tell me about the accountability in the military. Is the accountability both, like, think of it like this horizontally, like your your coworkers, but those that were in there with you in the trenches in infantry with you, the brotherhood, right? Or what do you call that?
Yeah, brotherhood.
Yeah,
That's a good word
brotherhood.
for it.
So that is that accountability, right? It
Sure.
can be peer to peer
Yeah.
accountability, but there's also like a head of the unit, right? Or
Yeah,
troop. So
commanding it.
commander.
Yeah,
Yeah.
commanding whoever's
So
the commanding officer or the lieutenant, captain, whoever's in charge of you. There's
did
vertical
accountability
leadership.
come from both?
Yeah, it came from both. I mean, your peers have standards and expectations that we all want to uphold for ourselves to make sure that we're not letting each other down. But the ultimate goal is the mission,
Right.
and the mission comes from above, and that's vertical leadership.
Right.
And vertical leadership was expected and forced. There was
Right.
no kind of like we couldn't say, "Hey, no, we're just
Yeah, I'm
not going
not
to.
thinking
Yeah,
about
we're
that.
not feeling that today. I'm not feeling like going to get shot
Hmm.
at today, or no, I don't want to get blown up today. Like that's not on my agenda for this
Yeah.
morning. So that wasn't the option. But the other accountability is when we went outside the wire.
Yeah.
The guys better make sure our trucks are filled up with fuel. Our maintenance is done. Our weapons are clean.
Yeah.
We got enough sleep the night before, so we're all alert and aware of our surroundings when we're on the mission. So if that didn't happen, there was some peer to peer accountability. Hey, you were up till 2 o'clock last night. Our mission's at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're falling asleep while we're driving around. Like that's some hard accountability
Oh
because my
yeah.
life is in
Their
their
hands
hands.
too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so at any time, anything can change in a millisecond when you're in combat. And
Man.
so there's a lot of that peer to peer accountability as well. And that's hard. That's really hard to do. That's hard to encounter and encounter that confrontation and conflict.
Yeah.
Men don't like to be challenged.
No.
Men don't love conflict. Men don't like confrontation, and especially when it's challenging who we are as a man.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that's hard to do, but the camaraderie and the brotherhood allows that to happen.
Mm, nice. So did you learn, was there any like grace or forgiveness within in the accountability?
Um, Not in the military, not a
Yeah.
lot, because we're in the trenches together.
Yeah.
We're there together. You're fighting together, and the purpose is to get home.
Right.
Right. The purpose is to get back to our families, our spouses, our children, our moms and dads, aunts and uncles. That was the ultimate goal.
Right.
A lot of people think the mission is, hey, we're going to go over there and save this country or protect these people. That's part of the mission. That's
Yeah.
not the end goal. The end goal is to get home safe with 10 fingers and 10 toes.
Well, you already know I'd struggle with the
Yeah,
10 fingers, right?
you failed there. I'm sorry.
but I like how you shoved that right in the middle of the podcast.
Here you
But
go.
so let's talk about how your leadership was developed. How would you characterize it from the military? Like today has shaped you to be the leader that you are today.
Yeah, I
Some of the
think
key
anybody
things you've brought
Yeah, I think
with you.
anybody can pick up a different style of leadership.
Right.
There's many different leaders. We had guys that were confident leaders. We had guys that would be leaders behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I always gravitated towards the leadership that would be in the trenches and be in the fight with me, right? Not just say, hey, make sure we go. We're going to go on this patrol today. Make sure you guys do that. Good luck.
Hmm.
Be safe. Here's your mission. It's
Yeah.
coming from a leadership position, but it wasn't something that was executed by that person or someone I could count on if
Right.
something goes wrong. Right, that
Makes
leadership
sense.
is back in the base, and if something goes wrong, we're communicating with them, but they're not there with me. They're not in the trenches with me. They're not in the firefight. Right, and
Right.
so I always admired and gravitated towards people and leaders that I could count on and depend on when the time's tough and it's
Yeah.
really hard and it's crunch time. I can look over and we're shoulder to shoulder,
Ugh.
and that was a big deal to me. And so
Yeah.
I've gravitated. There's a couple of people. Also, there's a gentleman named Master Sergeant Johnson who he's retired now, but he's like my hero.
Yeah.
And because when times got tough and when bullets start flying, he was there and he'd dig his heels in right with us instead of um, you know there's other options as leaders. He could have
Well,
not
yeah.
on not went on missions. He could have chose to send other people, but he always was. We were his kids to him, and he treated us like that.
Yeah. And I noticed today, like you have that approach too. We were just talking about it. Your leadership style is essentially you're in the trenches.
Yeah,
I said you're more of the Michael Jordan. I don't know if you like that analogy. You're not the Phil Jackson as much.
I'm just glad you
You're
didn't say LeBron.
yeah, right.
I'm
No,
just
Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, or let's say Tom Brady.
yeah.
You're on the field, you're still scoring, you're still helping people achieve their best, but you're also alongside them scoring also.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
as a loan officer as if I will ever stop originating loans,
Yeah.
just because it's hard to lead people when you're not in the trenches. I don't know
Right.
how to lead them, and I don't know how to guide them, and I don't know how to share information with them or even disseminate information to them
Right.
when I don't know what's going on. And so I always, I think I'll do that forever.
Yeah.
I don't think that will ever change.
I like that. I like that. And you enjoy mortgage.
I love what I do, man. It's when I first got into it, I was coming out of the military
Yeah.
and was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Like what is going on? But the lives of the people that I've seen that have been changed through what we do in the mortgage industry and how realtors help people and
Yeah.
change lives. I mean,
Yeah.
like it might sound corny, but getting somebody in a first time homebuyer situation and they don't have a lot of money, you're getting them down payment assistance. It's life changing for
Right.
people. When they have a home, it really does feel like they've made it and they've accomplished something and they've achieved something. And it's a big part of sometimes husbands feel like they're providing for their family stability.
Oh yeah.
And so
It's big.
yeah, even when sometimes there's no mortgages involved, you sit down and you help someone over the next year build their credit.
Right.
And so I'll tell you a quick crazy story. I
I
didn't
want to
even
hear
tell
it.
you this. This is
Yeah.
kind of off the cuff, but yesterday I had a lady in my office who had a disability. She was deaf and couldn't hear.
Oh.
Was coming in to get a mortgage and didn't make enough money to qualify just on Social Security. But I had found out for the last 5 days she had been sleeping in her vehicle, and she had a
Man.
dog with her. She was in her 60s, no family,
Sad.
and so her legs were swollen because she had been sleeping upright for the last 5 or 6 days. She had no food and $120 to her name. And so the leaders in our company and myself and my assistant Sabrina kind of stepped out of the office. We actually hired an interpreter to be there to translate the sign language. We stepped out, and I was just heartbroken
Yeah, I
to
can
see
imagine.
somebody in this situation, and this
Somebody's
could be
daughter, somebody's mother,
it's
somebody's sister.
heartbroken. So we put her up in a hotel for a week and
Yeah.
gave her $500 to provide. Now that's not to boast about what we do,
No.
but man, the joy and the tears that rolled from this
Yeah.
lady's face because somebody took just a moment to care about her.
It's
It's life changing,
um,
and not
oh yeah,
she might not ever understand the impact it made on me
on you.
more than it made on her
Oh,
because it was life changing for me and eye opening. Just it brings me humbles me a little bit to say, man, there's people still going through
it's
some
so
hard
blessed.
times,
Yeah.
and I'm so blessed to be able to provide and help for this woman. Like just thankful and appreciative, and wake up every morning thinking like that could be me, and I'm so
Yeah.
grateful.
I know. I used to think when I was younger, more immature, that how could I? So we have a customer. His name's Lonnie. No one will know his last name or know who he is, but comes. He used to come into the agency when I first opened up. No real close family, and he would walk into the agency from down the road, and I remember just sitting there and talking to him and talking to him. I would get us like order us pizzas, and we'd hang out. But ultimately, helping people protect the dreams that you're helping them achieve
Yeah,
is why I love insurance too, is because we've seen people lose their dream of being a homeowner
right.
and like through a fire and not be able to afford to get it because they didn't have the correct insurance. So we created I created my original business plan. Actually, before insurance, I don't know if I ever told you this, but before insurance, I was in footwear and
Foot
auto
Locker, right?
parts. Finish line.
Finish line. I knew it was
It's
something
okay.
close.
And then auto parts, which I picked up this line along the way. I used to walk into stores and I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Brandon?" And I'd say, "Hey, man, we love auto parts, but we love people more, and we got to show them today." I would like, "Hey, man, I know we love shoes, but we got to show people we love them more." And it's funny because when I built my business plan for insurance, I've been saying it for years. I just wrote it into the business plan, not thinking about it. It became our mantra, like our
Yeah,
main filter for what we do. And it actually became to where that mantra is my staff's mantra. They believe
yeah,
it and they repeat it as much or more than I do. Every phone call, if you asked your customers that have worked with us, because we share a lot of
yeah.
customers, they would tell you, man, they love insurance over there, but I can feel like they really took care of me and showed love for me.
Yeah, I think I've
So
heard that from you and your staff and your team. We love insurance, but we love people more. 1,000 times. I've known you for several years now, and uh, I'm getting sick of it actually. So it's, but I believe that. If I didn't believe
yeah,
that and I didn't see that, and
yeah,
not you can say
yeah.
all you want as a leader.
Hmm.
You can read as many books as you want as a
Right.
leader on leadership, but if you don't support the core values of what you believe and you don't show that, um, it's really cool
Oh yeah.
and it's flashy, but that's not a real leader. A leader is someone who drives and leads from the front
Mm.
for me, and
Yeah.
someone that you can count on, someone that's dependable. And I see that in you,
Yeah.
and your team sees that in you, and I see
Yeah.
that in your team that they believe that in you. And so, I've always supported you since we've met.
Yeah.
I've believed in you. I believed in your vision, and I really believe you care about people more. That's why I use you.
Appreciate you, man. I think that you do a really good job of showing people that you love them and that you're here to serve them. And that's what's driven me to you. And I don't even bring. We're a friend. We talk. We work on a lot of stuff together. But ultimately, I don't even let people. I'm like the gate holder of this podcast. Obviously, I don't want to bring people on for listeners to listen to if I don't believe in them,
Right?
because I really don't want bad advice
Sure.
being passed that I wouldn't
Yeah.
on. And I've always appreciated your advice. And then I want to thank you too, like publicly, why I have an opportunity, because I believe it's important to recognize publicly. I really appreciate everything you've done for our business, and how you've recommended business our way consistently. But also, I started the referral partnership class I ran with Daniel
Yeah.
Austin for
Yeah.
a
We did
while,
that a
right?
couple times.
We did that three in a row, 6-week courses, and you jumped on, and just from the goodness of your heart, you jumped on as our guest expert on the sixth class every time. And I'll tell you what, man, everybody loved you and they respected you as a professional and expert in the industry and leadership, because I told them you were not just great at mortgage, you were a great leader. And that's why I brought you on. And I want to thank you again, man. It was fun to do those. Daniel and I may be reprising those again,
Yeah, that'd be
bringing it
great.
back.
I'd
And
be honored to be on. And
I mean, I already know, like, I have you penciled in as the expert no matter what, but we'll see if we do that again. But nonetheless, I wanted to thank you because you go above and beyond, and you do, sir. You're just like deep down, you're just a servant leader, and I've always admired that, and I think that it was a buzzword. If you look back about 10 years ago, it was a buzzword to be like, "Oh, I'm a
Yeah.
servant leader."
Yeah.
Because if I asked you what kind of leader you were, you didn't say servant leader.
Yeah.
You said you're in the trenches, you're
Yeah.
working hard, you're side by side. You feel what they feel. You know what they feel.
Yeah.
So that's how you describe a servant leader. You don't say I'm a servant leader.
Yeah.
That's like saying we got good culture.
Yeah.
What the heck does that mean?
Doesn't mean a
Right?
thing unless you see it. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's important for me to
Yeah.
be shoulder to shoulder with people and feel pain when they feel pain,
Right.
and celebrate the wins when there's victories
Mm.
together. And it's good to be there through those moments. And
Oh,
so I cherish them. Sometimes it's hard. Leadership is tough. It sucks sometimes,
yeah.
but sometimes, man, it's really rewarding
Isn't
to
it?
see people succeed.
Fulfillments.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the fulfillment and satisfaction you see from other people. It's not the joy I get from being a leader.
Yeah.
When one of my kids are successful because I've taught them something, it doesn't make me feel better or proud as a dad. I'm just so happy for them. I'm so joyful and excited because my kids are happy.
Yes.
And that's more important to me as part of leadership, is to see the success of someone's life that you're part of.
Yeah.
That's where I get my joy
Yeah.
from. I don't get joy off of saying, "Hey, you're a great leader." I mean, you've just uh, very humbly said some nice things about me, but I don't get the joy from that. My joy comes from when I lead my client to you and they
Yeah.
come back and they're happy. That's the joy. I
Yeah.
led them to somewhere that was going to take care of them. I
You
don't.
did.
I don't go, "Oh, man, I did a great job.
I did a good job for them.
I did. I mean, if
Yeah.
it wasn't for me, if it wasn't, if I didn't do that, if
Where would they be?
yeah, if everything turns
Right?
into I, and so
I
I've always been a part of making other people the hero, not me.
That's good, man. And that's where, and the bigger our businesses get, both of ours, we've grown together.
Yeah.
I think back 2 years ago, were you five total offices and 19 people?
Yeah. No, we weren't there yet.
No.
That's for sure. Not
So
even
you
close.
so you've grown quite a bit. When we started working together, I want to say it was like me plus three or four.
Yep.
We're at 13
Yeah.
people now.
Your team
So
has grown
it's
tremendously.
and what's great is that we are not perfect. We still make mistakes, but I think ultimately the one thing, and I'm not tapping myself on the shoulder. I'm not talking about my other two leaders, Rachel, Kathy. They're very good at admitting when they're wrong, because people want to lead or follow a leader that is real and authentic. And when we make mistakes, we may say we love insurance, but we owe people more. But when we show somebody that I didn't love insurance on that review,
Yeah.
or I didn't love that customer very much.
Right.
When, like, I'll be honest, I had a conversation with an employee yesterday and today about that, about like the mantra, and like they just, I didn't have to say much, and they spilled everything, and they're just like, "I'm so sorry." Like, I, I'm like, "You didn't let me down." I was a little disappointed, but I'm not mad at you. You didn't let me down, but what can we learn from it? Like,
Yeah.
do you actually love insurance still? Because
Accountability's hard.
it
Well,
is.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you get confronted with accountability,
Yeah.
you can do two things. You can run from it, and it's still going to catch up to you no
Yeah.
matter what. And you can run for, days, weeks, months, even years from accountability,
Oh man.
but it will catch up to you. And in the meantime, while you're running from it, it will eat you alive.
Oh
The guilt, the shame, the hurt, and the pain, and the trail that you leave behind from running from accountability and confrontation will hurt you.
man.
Or you can
That's so
turn
true.
around and you can run right towards it,
Yes.
and it's still going to hurt. It's
Yes.
still going to be painful. It's still going to be humbling. But man, the freedom of getting through it in days or hours or weeks instead of suffering the pain of confrontation and accountability, it's life change. It's freeing. It's not just life change, but it's freeing. So accountability is hard. A lot of people don't like it because they're afraid of it, and it makes you a better person. It makes you a
So
better
true.
leader. And so I've always said I will always turn and run towards confrontation and
Right.
accountability. I'm not going to let it control my life.
You've been consistent with, like, in the years I've known you, and just speaking to you, observing you, knowing Sabrina and your team, and they would say the same thing. You're not afraid of confrontation. You run towards it, and I believe the same thing. I'm really not running from it either, because I actually believe, this is a quote I took from somebody else, but conflict delayed is conflict multiplied.
Yeah.
So when you turn and run from it, like you said, it doesn't resolve itself. It actually gets bigger, scarier, and now you say, why didn't I address that months ago? Now it's impacted more people. or the situation has gotten out of hand. And I know I'm to blame because I noticed it, recognized it, knew I should have addressed it, and I didn't. And I'm the leader.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was quick to admit yesterday was like, you know what? If I have spoken negative about a customer, that then I've broken my own rule.
Right.
And we don't do that. Like, because negativity is like a
It's
cancer,
contagious.
right?
So
And I'm
contagious.
so positive. It takes a lot to crack me. But if I lose it for a minute, I want to get back and say, you know what? I shouldn't have said that, you know? So it's cool to see the full circle, not me, but them. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
not about me because I don't find as much fulfillment looking in the mirror and being like, "Bo, you should be so proud of yourself."
Yeah. That
You know?
doesn't get us anywhere.
No, because one thing that I started teaching leaders in this leadership academy is that leaders should be like doctors and carpenters. Let me explain the thought behind this. So doctors, they diagnose the problem
Correct?
so that they can give the correct treatment. When you misdiagnose what's wrong with the patient, you can't give them the correct treatment. So, what I've learned is that I need to be a doctor that researches and asks questions in order to identify what is wrong, what habit is off, so that I can help them and provide the training and treatment to correct this
Mm,
course.
so
Because if I
good.
assume hey, it's not a stomach ache, it's cancer,
Yeah.
and it's a stomach ache, I'm given the wrong treatment
Yeah.
to potentially kill them. And or if I give them treatment for a stomach ache and it is cancer, it's not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you go to carpenter. This is for my leaders too. So carpenters, they build great houses. When you judge a carpenter, think about a handyman, carpenter, finisher,
Yeah.
okay? You will judge them based on what they build. You will never tell me, Bo, let me tell you about the hammers
Yeah.
they carry and the saws they use.
Yeah. You're
Now,
looking at the finished product.
exactly. But the finished product does take great tools to build. So,
Correct.
like you as a leader, your great communication, accountability, training, leading by example, those are your tools and skills that help you build what cross country mortgage has turned into.
Yeah.
So those are used to build, but I'm sick of America and maybe the world describing leaders based on he's a great communicator. He's great at this podcast. He's a great leader.
Yeah.
That
That
does not equal to that.
no. So one thing I learned, and it's really
Yeah.
simple. The infantry has a very simple motto:
Let's hear it.
follow me.
Follow me. Okay.
Follow me. It's not
Follow
very
me.
difficult. It doesn't say sit back and I'll watch you. It doesn't say go ahead. It says follow me, which means I'm with you
Yeah.
and I'm there with you arm in arm. We're going to do this together. Right. And so uh, accountability and confrontation is hard. I mean, if you
Right.
think about it, I always look at things in military terms just because that's where my
Yeah.
instincts always go back to. But if you run into a firefight or a battle and you decide to turn away and run, all you're doing is delay the inevitable. Right, they're going to have more resources. They're going to get reinforcements. They're going to get more troops while you're retreating. Right, they're building,
Mm,
and eventually, if you run, they're going to overwhelm you,
man.
and you're going to get overrun. And so we just say, hey, look, here it is. We got it. It might be 15 against 10, right? But I think our 10's better than their 15. Here we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Right. If we run and say, okay, wait, we need to troop up another 15 guys to make it even,
Mm,
by the time we go back and get support, they've got 30 guys, right? And so follow me. Let's not wait. Let's attack. We're not waiting for them to make the first move. We're
yeah.
going to lead from the front, and we're going to face conflict head on.
Man.
And so
It's good.
follow me. It's just very simple. That means I'm with you.
Yeah.
That means if you're going, I'm going.
That means the leader's leading. Follow
That's
me.
it.
So
Follow
they're
me.
out front. So who's leading them?
Yeah.
Right? Or who led them in the past. So I think it also, so let's talk about this for a second. So I have this belief that you will learn the most from the leaders that you loathed, or like they were so bad, and the ones that you loved.
Yeah.
So the ones in the middle, they just get lost. They're
They get
kind of like
lost.
in the middle. The guy that says, "Hey, Brandon, have a good day. I'll be in the office if you need anything," right?
Yeah.
Then there's the guy that you wanted to emulate, or the guy or gal, and then the lady that maybe you just couldn't stand. So, has there been some figures in your life that were on one side or the other? You don't have to name them because I'm not a big fan of being like, look at what I've accomplished, Dad.
Yeah.
Like whether that's in the negative
Right.
or uncle. Like, so I want to hear. Is there some things that people that you have emulated and seen some great things from military past life? or loathed and you've made the exact opposite
Yeah, so,
in your life?
obviously in the military, there's great people that I've, like, seen in action,
Yeah.
and I've seen them, uh, when times are hard, they've stood up,
Mm.
and, when I look to the left and right, they're there with me.
Yeah.
When you see guys do that when they don't have to, right? When they're in a leadership position where they're not called to do that, but they do it anyways.
Right.
And so there's several guys that I look to and want to emulate there. And there's also people in the military that I've just been like, um, you don't got my back. You're giving me orders, but you're not supporting me.
Yeah.
You're not there with me. I see it in day to day life. There's people. I've worked at other industries before this, and you want a leader to be someone you can count on.
Right.
You want someone that is going to have your back.
Right.
You want someone that is dependable. And
Mm.
when that starts to fade for me, I
Right.
start to lose respect for that person. And I remember those things and those qualities and traits that I loathe, like you said, and I never want to be that. Right. So my expectation we'll use as a fatherhood. My dad left me and my mom at a pretty young age.
Yeah.
So for a longest time, my expectation for a father was not a lot. It was like,
Right.
hey, be there past my kid's 4-year-old birthday. And man,
I've already done more.
I've done more than my dad.
Yeah.
And so that was the bar, and the bar was real low. Hey, I'm still married. I'm 20 years into this. I'm still married. I've I'm better than my dad.
Right.
Right. And so when you set the expectations low, the results will be low.
Oh man.
And
So
so
true.
once I realized the bar was set too low for me, and I restructured everything that I looked at, I changed my vision, I changed my strategy and how
Yeah.
I work, how I parent, and how I husband, right? And the expectation and the bar was set to perfection.
Man.
Perfection was the bar, right?
So
And so will I ever get there? Absolutely not. But the bar is there, and that's the goal. That's
yeah.
the end goal. So to get there, what does that look like? Every day, step by step, getting better, pursuing excellence,
Yeah.
one day at a time, whether it's with my health, my attitude, my career, everything I do, I'm striving on a daily basis to reach perfection, knowing that I'm never going to get there. I
Yeah.
know that, but that
True.
doesn't mean the pursuit stops.
So true. And that's good because that's actually what I believe, like with my 3 key steps to leadership, is that you should train your very best,
Yeah.
teach your very best, lead your very best, model it. But then you should expect perfection, but knowing that people aren't perfect and showing grace and forgiveness when they do fail. Because I think of it a little bit like Jesus. Jesus was a great teacher of his disciples. And then he led his disciples quite well, but he also expected them to do what he taught
Right.
them. And he expects us to do what he's taught
Did they
us.
fail him? Did they ever
No,
fail?
I
They
don't
didn't.
think he ever failed any of them. He
No,
went,
no. Did his
oh, all
disciples
the
fail?
time,
Yeah. It's
all the
just,
time. And he had to repeat, like, did you not see what I've done, what I've taught you? Did you, why were you so quick to forget? And Jesus made this comment a lot in the Bible. He said, now go and sin no more. Did he really think people were going to go and not sin anymore the rest of their life?
he knew.
No, he knew that. So I think like when I lead people, I know I'm going to train them my best, expect the best. I'm going to lead by example the best I can. I'm going to strive for perfection, but knowing I'm going to fail. But when they fail, I want them to be striving for excellence, but expecting that they probably will fail at some point and showing them the grace, forgiveness, and start back at training, teach it and lead it again to get them back on the right course. So, I believe like that's why I created those 3 steps is because
Yeah.
I think it's like so intricate to helping people become the best version of themselves. And I actually, so obviously it's called the conviction of a leader, and we
Right.
talked about your convictions on the last time you were on, but I've changed and added some convictions to my life because as we grow, we change. And my wife told me this. I think it was my wife. She said, every 3 years, you should reintroduce yourself to people you haven't talked to in 3 years
Yeah.
because they've changed and you've changed, right? So I've changed. So have my convictions. And one of them was I want to train people as a leader. I want to train people to be as good or better than I in way less time. If it took me 18 years of leadership to get here, I want them to learn as fast and efficient as possible. I don't need them to take 18 years
Right.
because that was one of the things I loathed as leaders before me is that you had to be this position for this long because that's what I was. You had
Yeah.
to do this for this long. You need a degree because I had this. They wanted you to live the same path, same length as them. But what I've changed is this. I believe my biggest calling as a leader is to help people find who they are, who they were made to be, their calling,
Their why.
their
Yeah.
why, right? What really drives them and adds fulfillment to their life, because that is the hardest thing in life you'll ever have to do. So if you're listening to this podcast, I would speak to you and tell you that the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do is to find out like who you were
Right.
created to be, which is the most important thing in your life. So as a leader, I now believe that my biggest calling is to help everybody I work with find what they were called to be. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily their career.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
not.
That's not what I mean.
Yeah. It's. I
Right.
mean. I mean, how many books are written about purpose-driven life and what's your
Yeah.
why? And there's. I mean, you can't even count on one hand how many books are, and it's because there's a reason behind it. People want to know that, and people want to try to figure that out. And
So
so
true.
that's the hard part about even being a leader. Sometimes is I want to be someone that can, being in the military, it was hard for accountability for me as a leader, because if I was wrong and I made a mistake, I usually would look back and say, no, you guys screwed up. I told you what to do. I showed you what to do and you failed. That was always hard for me because, um, and then I realized, hey, maybe it was me. Maybe it was my leadership style. Maybe it was my teaching style. Maybe it was like, hey, you just can't yell at everybody and they're going to do what you want.
Right.
That guy might not have understood what you said,
Right.
because he wants you to draw a picture and point an arrow and say, go that way and shoot this house. Right. And this other guy, you just might have to communicate that with him. And somebody else, you might have to do it another way. And
Yeah.
so for the longest time, I'd always say, okay, here's the mission. Here's what we're going to do. But if we failed, I always looked at everybody else
Yeah.
and said, you failed. You didn't listen. You didn't plan. You didn't go to the right place. And ultimately, every time we typically failed, it was usually my fault.
Right.
And I hated that. So,
But that helped you grow
oh, it's
and it
changed
helped
it's
them
changed my
grow.
leadership style completely. I always wanna
Right.
be approachable. I wanna be
Yeah.
told that, "Hey, you did something wrong," and I'm going, "Ah, shoot, I'm sorry. I failed you. I'll get better."
This podcast too is about me showing people that, hey, although I feel like I've been in leadership for 18 years and I do know a lot, right? But I don't know everything. And I still want to stay a student of leadership. I want to learn as much as I still can because there's ways, like I said, my convictions are changing at, 18 years in, 39 years of life. Like we still change. Things can be
Mhm.
done better. And I think one of the biggest lies in the world is people start to believe that I was made perfect. I'm perfectly fine the way I am. I
Yeah,
don't need to be better than I am today. And it's like, no, that's a lie. Like there's a better version of all of us. Even though we were made uniquely by God to be different, doesn't mean we can't strive to be the best version of who we were created to be. And the lie is that some people say, I am perfect the way I am today.
right.
And that's a lie.
It's
You're
just,
not.
that's not from anything I've ever been taught.
Exactly.
And so
But
there's
that's
always
why,
a
yeah,
purpose to continue to get better in everything you do. And as soon as you stop and think like, hey, I'm refined.
right.
This is who I am. This is my finished product. What more is there?
People go backwards when they hit
Yeah.
that
What
point. They
more
don't
what
usually go
more is
forward,
there?
do they?
Yeah. No, you're just like, what more is there? What's your purpose? What's your why? Are you doing what you're doing? Why are you in the career you're
You
in then?
know,
If this is your finished product.
it's funny because I used to think like I'm gonna work my butt off and retire super early. But then I started to think like, no, I have so much fulfillment because now I'm not in a career that I'm running from.
Yeah.
I created. Okay, let me rephrase that. I believe God gave me dreams that He's allowing me to experience because He created me in a specific way to do them. And now I'm living in like part of my dreams that I
Yeah.
dreamed of as a kid, being a business owner, entrepreneur. I wanted to be on the radio. This is as close as it gets nowadays to radio. So I'm seeing these dreams come to fruition as business owner, leader, podcaster, consultant, all these great things, speaking to, well-established people like you that actually want to have conversate with me. Like it's fun for me to now I don't look in the mirror and say, Bo, I'm so proud of you, but I do this quite often. It's really good for me and healthy for all of you. Is this. I look in the mirror and I remind myself, wow, God, look at how blessed I am. You've taken me from this to this to this. So it's quite often that instead of being complacent, I'm content. I say, God, I'm content. If this is all I have in life, I'm content.
Yeah.
If this is all you've provided me with, I'm still going to keep striving. I'm not going to be complacent and lay on this couch and wait for the next thing. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to believe that there's more. But if there isn't, I'm thankful for what you've provided. So, and that has changed my life because I am so future driven. I'm so goal oriented. I'm so looking to the next version, upgraded version of me,
Yeah.
of my staff, my
It's good.
agency. But what it did though is it stopped me from appreciating today. For so long in my life, I was so looking forward to my kids being a little older, to me being at the next position, to my business being bigger, but then realizing, wow, I missed out on opportunity to appreciate those simple things and basic things like a kid that, you know, can't really speak to you. Like I
Yeah.
miss that, right?
Yeah.
Because all three kids are old and big now. And, now you have a 17-year-old driving off. And I bet you can remember times when Gavin was 2, 3, or 4 and you wished he was older. And now he's
Yeah,
older and you're like, I
there's
wish he
some
was
days I
younger.
wish every day my kids were out of the house. I
Yeah,
mean, I love them. It's
I
hard.
know.
Being a father is hard, and parenting kids are hard. And there's days I question my sanity
Of
for sure,
course.
and why we do what we do, and why we have 5 kids. But then there's the days where there's the little moments where your son looks at you and says, "Dad, you're awesome.
Ugh,
Dad, I love
it's the
you."
best, man.
Like then
It's
it's
the
man,
best.
it's the best
That's
compliment
that's
you can get.
better than as much as I love my staff, it's so much better than
Yeah.
being a great leader at work, is being a great father, great husband.
I'm going through. I'm coaching one of my son's baseball
Me
teams right
too.
now,
Me too.
and man, he's a great kid. He's a great
Which
kid.
one?
But Uriah,
Uriah?
Uriah. So he's my
Yes.
second oldest. He's
Yes.
12,
I know him.
and so he plays first base. Not the world's most athletic kid,
He's
more heart than anybody.
yeah.
And so he went 3 for 3 first game of the night,
Phew.
first game of the year. He went 3 for 3. Hit a if you know Uriah, he's a big kid,
I
not very
do.
fast,
I know
not
him.
very fast at
Yeah.
all, fleet footed, but hit a deep drive to left center field. And most kids are trotting home pretty easy, but he got a double, and it was like, man, he came back and just the joy. I mean, his face was red because he was so happy and embarrassed. Like it was just like
Yeah,
he
'cause he
was,
didn't want all
yeah,
that.
he was just so
Just
happy though. He
happy.
was just like I think he shocked himself,
Yeah.
and just to see the pure joy and the happiness and the gratification he got
Mm.
from that, dude, that was a victory for me. And he didn't even
So
have to say
true.
anything. It was like, man, that was we do highs and lows every night at dinner for our kids.
Yeah.
We go around the table. Hey, what's your high? What's your low? Just allows some conversation
Yeah.
starters. And his high was like, I went 3 for 3 and got a hit, but he couldn't stop smiling. And as a victory for me, when it came around to me, I just like, my high today was to see you happy.
Yeah.
That was my high. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of things that went on throughout the day that were great, but man, seeing that from him and seeing the satisfaction and the gratification of the
Right.
hard work that he's put in, transition to the field
Mm.
and translate to the field was, man, that was a proud dad moment for me.
So
And
true,
he didn't have
man.
to say anything. I saw it in his face.
I seen it like my middle son too, also 12. He pitched last I think it was last week or the week before. First game of the season, and it wasn't so like the most strikeouts he's had in a game, right? But he looked best I've ever seen. Best. Stride was good. He's a pitcher,
Yeah.
left-handed. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
I mean, his stride was good, longer than ever. He's pulling back farther than ever. And I'm just like so proud of him. And I don't know if you saw me make this little video on Instagram or Facebook, and um, he struck somebody out, and he looked over at me and smiled as he was walking back to the mound. And I almost cried like in the game because I was like, I thought about it and I was like, dude, he's looking for me after he just did something good, not his coach, not his friends, not his
Yeah.
teammates. So like that's important,
Yeah.
and that's what makes me quite sad about you,
Mhm.
thinking about it. And I know you don't regret that, but as a kid, when you played and you would have been in Uriah's position, you hit
Yeah.
a home run, you're looking for your mom, but it's a
Yeah.
different life.
There was I mean, I played baseball most of my whole high school
I know.
career, and
Hamilton area,
no,
where no,
Columbus, in
Columbus,
Columbus,
sorry.
and I can maybe count on one hand, and from middle school to high school that my mom had an opportunity
Because
to
she was
come.
working.
She was working, and when
Yeah,
she wasn't working, she was taking care of things around the home, and so I
yeah.
don't hold that against her at all. She
No.
did what she had to do, and again, it just made me realize like I have to be a really good husband so my wife don't have to suffer
Ah,
the
so
misses
good. Yeah,
and
so true.
suffer the sacrifices of not being there. It's not that she wouldn't have wanted to been there. It's the fact that she couldn't be there.
And I think there's a difference. So I read a book a while back. I'd have to look it up for you and anybody else, but it was about kids, and it was a psychologist who studied thousands of kids and families, and ultimately she said she's learned that mothers or kids take advantage of their mom because they feel like mom's love is unconditional.
It is.
But dad's love is earned. The kids feel that they have to earn their dad's love consistently. it's not unconditional like their mother. Now, you and I think we're pretty good fathers, and we
Yeah.
try to go out of our way to let our
Sure.
kids know just because I'm disappointed in you today doesn't mean I don't love you.
Right.
Does it, and I think that a lot of fathers struggle with the emotional side of like telling their kids like,
Sure.
I
Men aren't
love
good
them,
at
I'm
that.
proud of you, but they let emotions come out and it kind of takes away from, what their kids may feel. Because a lot of the dads have had to be the authoritative, reprimanding figure and or the mothers in some households,
Yeah.
and maybe your mom had to carry both, which is tough. Like
Yeah.
for my mom was a little different. She was more nurturing. My dad was, more the authoritative, mean one,
Right.
where my mom would tell him like, "Hey, Bo did this and he needs a spank." And like,
Yeah.
so like the thing is like you have what she said is she studied all these kids and that, yeah, kids feel they got to earn their dad's love
Oh,
and not their
I feel like
moms.
that's accurate. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife, no matter what my kids do, she's always there
Mm.
uh, within minutes
Yeah.
to comfort, to console. She's got so much
So true. My
empathy from
mom's
them.
still the same way.
Yeah, she's got so much
Yeah.
empathy for her kids. I'm like,
What are you
what
coddling
are you
for?
doing? Like he
Yeah.
just like threw a baseball through a window and he's
Yeah.
crying and
Let
he's
him
there's
cry
some
for a second.
repercussions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but she's like, oh, it was an accident. He didn't mean to. It wasn't
Right.
intentional. I'm like, like so it's very hard for me, even just in my lifetime, to always
Yeah.
be an emotional person. I'm not a very emotional sensitive when it comes to
Right.
that stuff, but I'm learning that my kids need that side of me.
Oh, they do. And you know what I've learned too as a leader, but a father, is that our kids need to feel like you are listening. They just want to know, are you listening? You don't have to do what they say. They just want to know, Dad, did you hear me? Because
Right.
like the saddest thing is like sometimes when my wife has to remind me, hey, he's talking to you. And I'm like, and it's not like I'm on my phone. Sometimes it's just like I need to be present and
How
be there.
important though that is, that
Yeah.
makes me think, is being a good leader. Well, how important, like, just to listen to your staff or listen to
Huge.
your wife, listen to your kids, and just be focused on them. Sometimes you don't even have to respond. You have to give them the ear and full attention.
So true,
And
man.
it's hard. My phone sometimes is an obstacle for me.
Yeah.
It is a hurdle for me. It causes barriers in my relationships.
Yeah.
And I've always noticed when I set that aside and I focus and I look someone in the eye
Mhm.
and say, you've got my full attention, not putting
Yeah.
my phone out, putting it upside down, or, just putting it away, not visible. It's a game changer
Yeah.
for dinner time at the table. It's a game changer when I'm talking to my staff. It's a game changer when I'm talking to my wife,
Yeah.
like, because she knows I'm I'm listening.
You know, that's huge. I think that's you asked me, you said like how big is that? I mean, it's huge because like I can say from a staff perspective, they just want to know that they have your ear when they want it
Hmm.
and need it. But they're not asking me to do everything they say. They just want me to hear them out. Like our kids want you to hear them out. They don't need you to do everything that they ask you to do. They just need to know that they can hear it. And I think that everybody wants to be treated fairly too, but not the same. So like military, sometimes in sometimes schools, like they are kind of treat everybody the same and fairly. It's it
Yeah.
struggles to treat people like individuals, right?
Right.
So I think like our kids want to be treated fairly. They want to know that he's going to get the same punishment if he breaks the window that I
Yeah.
got.
Hmm.
But they also don't want to be treated. They don't want you to speak to them the same way. Like you said, like each person is slightly different, and your relationship with them is different too. And even as kids, as team members, each one I can speak to a little bit differently, but fairly. So I don't speak to Kathy the same way I speak to Rachel, and I don't speak to Rachel the same way I speak to Melody, right? Speak to them each slightly different because our relationships are different. But more importantly, they are different. And the way that they communicate is different. And the way they respond is different. And, I wish some days I wish I could just be like,
Yeah.
hey, do this. But I don't speak like that. One. Two, I like to speak differently. I try to state the whys while
Yeah.
I'm asking somebody to do something, and then I try to show them, model it as much as I possibly can.
And that leads me to think, is it took me the longest time to understand how people learn, how individuals on my team,
Oh,
how
yeah.
to communicate with people. I used to try to figure it out. Oh, okay, they seem like they're a this type of person.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that was so far from how it works, is me trying to figure out how to lead them. It was sometimes it's two simple things.
Yeah.
Time with them. Spend time
Time.
with them. Spend time, be there
Man.
with them, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, understand them, get to know them, and spend time with them. And the other thing was, it's so simple, it's frustrating. I just asked.
Yeah. It
This is
is.
crazy. Sometimes,
It
hey, what's
is.
the best way you like to learn? How do you
Mm,
want me to lead you? How do you want me to guide you? What ways can I encourage you the most?
right?
And instead of just trying to for my wife figure out her love language for 20
Right.
years, sometimes it just took me after about 15
Asking.
years to just say, hey, how can I love you the best?
Yeah.
What how can I encourage you the most? And she was like, well, you always buy me gifts and I don't care about gifts. If you could just do the dishes every night, that is the best thing. And I was like, man, that would have saved me thousands of dollars
Thousands.
if I would have just asked a long time
Right.
ago. And I was just so lack of observing, and I felt my way of leading her was the best,
Right.
and
But
it
it was
was
also
not.
the way that you can maybe expect
Yeah.
to be, interacted with, or maybe you saw an example like that and thought that's how all, relationships are.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something is like I've learned things from my father that are great.
Yeah.
Also learned some bad habits. You know what's funny is like I revert back to a lot of the bad habits he had for myself because what you learned, what you saw, you tend to revert back to.
Mhm.
But when that happens is when two things happen. When I lose patience and emotion, and my emotions come out, is I revert back to the worst or the lowest level of my training or what I saw. So I'm not who I want to be in those times, and that requires me to apologize
Right.
and grow and ask for forgiveness. And what's funny? You mentioned something earlier. I have this like I like to think of like analogies, and I want people to really visualize things, but think of like steps, right? So you and I are here, and if I wrong you, and let's say Sabrina's your best friend, I wrong you. You
Right.
guys work together and I'm leading you. I wrong you, I lose several steps of respect for you, but also I might lose one or two with her too.
Right.
And when you gain respect, it's one step at a time, but when you lose it, it's actually multiple steps backwards, and it's much harder to get back to where you were at one point. So trust is very very hard to earn, very easy to lose, and you can fall back to the bottom of the stairs with one comment, one impatience, one emotional outburst as a leader, and go all the way back to square root run one with them where you thought she would run through a wall for me. Now she won't even talk to me.
Yeah. It's that simple to
It
lose that.
is.
I used to, and you brought up Sabrina. You know how much she supports me and all the
I love
things
her.
she does for
Shout out to
me.
Sabrina.
And she's very supportive of what I do,
Yeah.
and we talk a lot and we communicate a lot, and we're always in my office communicating. And there's times where she'll say some things to me, and I was like, well, you need to do this and maybe do this, and she'll, I've learned to. She's got this saying, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen.
Oh,
Like,
I
listen to
like
me.
that.
I don't need
Yes.
you to fix me. I just need you to listen to me right now. And so I've learned to, when
So
she's sitting
true.
down and she's talking to me, I ask, is this a fix it or is this a listen?
I
And
like
she'll tell
that.
me, hey, I got a problem. I need you to help solve it. Or, hey, I just want you to hear me out. I don't want you to try to correct it or fix it. I just want to, explain the situation and tell you what's going on. And I
You're
don't
the
need your
second
help.
person who's given me that advice. Feel it or fix it is what he used to say, but like I need to put that into play a little more. Is sometimes I want to go right in with them and say,
Yeah, you want to give
"Let's
advice,
figure
you want
this
to
out."
help, you want to jump right in,
I
and
remember.
that was me. I was a jump right in, try to fix it kind of
Yep.
guy. And she's like, I don't need you to fix it.
Yeah.
Just hear me.
So I that reminds me of a couple years ago. I had an employee, and she came to me. It sounded like she just wanted me to listen
Hmm.
and let her complain for a minute. And it was her boyfriend didn't have a car, or his car broke down. They only had one car they were sharing. Um, and they were down to zero cars, whatever happened, right? And she called and she was complaining about something. And I was just like, well, have you thought about this and tried this and done this? And she was just like, I was just kind of wanted to vent. Like she told me,
Yeah.
I wasn't really kind of was like surprised. Like I wasn't really looking for you to solve my problem. I was just kind of telling you like, we're in a tough spot. I wanted to vent to you for a second. Wanted you to hear what I'm going through, not solve my issue today. And I was just like, whoa, kind of like a gut check. And I think as leaders, problem solving is something we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes we assume that everybody wants us to problem solve for them, and that's not true. Uh, Sometimes, you know, in our agency, in our business, I have this like saying. It's like, hey, this is different from where you've been.
Yeah.
We ask a lot of questions when you ask questions.
Hmm.
So when people come to me and they ask me, "Hey, Bo, what should I do here? What should I do that?" I ask them a question to their question.
Right.
Where have you looked? What is your gut telling you? What is your training telling you? What do you think? Like I'm asking them what they think they should do because I'm not answering it because I'm going to go back to the carpenter. if I answer it, I'm not helping build anything. I'm
Right.
just building myself.
Sure.
So I want to build them, and I want them to be like so sufficient on their own that they are leaders, because leadership is a choice. It's not a title, right?
Right.
Title is authority. We have authority, sales manager, owner, CEO. Those are authority titles. They're not leadership titles. Leadership is freely given. People decide if they want to follow you, but you also decide as the authoritative manager if you actually want to be a leader. Because a lot of leaders or managers are not leaders, they just are forceful. You do this because I said so.
Yeah. So how do you, I know we're getting low on time, but how
Yeah.
do you if you're into that situation where you got
Yeah.
a leader that's got a title
Yeah.
and they're leading with the title and not leading
Mhm.
with um being in the trenches or whatever that may be, how do you react to that? What's your response and what is your, have you ever been in a situation? I know I'm
Yeah.
role playing here and
Yeah.
turning the question back on you. It should
So,
You should be questioning me, but what's that look like? What's that interaction look like when you got a leader that you're
yeah.
serving that's just by title?
Yeah. I think it's important to ask them questions then. So questions are always important. Is to ask them, what kind of leader did you set out to be when you first became one? So like if I sat down with you and I knew that you were leading me selfishly,
Yeah.
and I sat down and I was talking to you about you. I always said this, if you care about somebody else, they'll eventually care about you.
Yeah.
It's almost like if I say, Andy never cares about me,
Yeah.
but I've never once asked any caring questions or showed any interest in his life. So I said, you know what? Maybe they don't care about me, but I'm going to start showing them that I care about them. I'm going to ask my leader, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you progressing? Hey, when you set out to be a leader, who did you want to be like? Like what leaders did you look up? What kind of convictions or strongly held beliefs do you feel like a leader should live up to?
Right.
And sometimes when you put people in a position like that and you're asking them questions, what's funny is when I speak about things that I want to do, sometimes I answer my question of like, am I living up to who I said I wanted to be? So maybe setting it up like that. But another thing is this, I like to ask another question too, is like, Brandon, how's my performance been? Is there something I can do to improve my performance? Is there something I can do to help the team and you take stress off of you more? So I think sometimes we think we should be blessed with a position
Yeah.
that's higher than what we
That's
have.
putting yourself out there too,
Right.
because who
It,
knows the
we
response?
don't
It's
know.
dangerous.
They're scared of the response, but the truth is this, it shows leadership to ask people their opinion of you, which makes you vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, it could show that you could lead other people. If I can put myself out there and use myself as a good or bad example, make myself really vulnerable to you and say, hey man, I got a couple questions for you. Like, how's my performance been?
Yeah.
What could I do to improve my performance, the team? You know, have I been making good decisions that have showed you that I'm a good leader
Hmm.
or could be a good leader? What could I correct in my life? So what's weird is when you flip those questions versus going at Brandon, I leave out the you.
Yeah.
Brandon, you wronged me.
Mm,
That is going to start out the
that's good.
conversation as ultra defensive,
Yep.
and you're not going to be willing to help me achieve my goals
Hmm.
in life. So what's cool is that if you ask some great questions, um, and then I might even say this, Brandon, do you mind if I share my goals and dreams with you? I I became a loan originator because I really wanted to help people sell their dreams. And I feel like lately I've been doing a lot of processing and assisting stuff instead of the, actually loan origination side. And
Right.
that's what I really like came to do. But through that, I wanted to be a trainer for this company.
Hmm.
And I was hoping that I would at some point not no longer sell, but help train people on how to sell and be there to help them. Not the manager or have to hold them accountable to that level, but like
Right.
I want to train them. So flipping it on people and just sharing your heart, being vulnerable in that position shows great leadership. And I'll tell you this, if they don't respond well to those things in a heart to heart, they're just maybe you're at the wrong place,
Mm,
but it doesn't mean that you can't help the leader.
right.
So leadership is a choice, and being rude and mean and saying hurtful things doesn't ever work. And if I say you didn't do this, you could have done this, I would have done this, doesn't it never works. It
Yeah.
creates defensiveness. So that's my advice, is to really come from an angle of like, I want to talk about me,
Sure.
you know?
That's good. It's great advice, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. That's not easy. No
No.
leader likes to show weakness, and but I think finding your weaknesses will
Mm.
also turn into your strengths.
So true, man. And we're going to end here in a minute, but it's funny you said this, and I want to encourage you because you have a lot of kids. So I
Yeah.
want,
Thanks.
I had my son, I was told that my weakness, uh, or my strength was my weakness for years until somebody once told me, like, wow, you're really good at this, and identified it as a strength. And I was like, what? Like, I always thought that was a weakness because teachers and parents and everybody else said I was too impulsive, or hey, your thoughts became actions way too fast. You need to have more time for thinking, which is funny because in the entrepreneurial world or leadership world, it's actually helped me quite a bit, is to be able
Hmm.
to take a thought and make it happen faster than others, but thinking at a faster speed and putting it into action.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that we need to be cautious. Everybody listening, is that your employee, your team member, your friend, your spouse, coworker, even your leader, what you may be identifying as a weakness could actually be their strength,
Mm,
just not channeled correctly.
right.
So kids too, like they make decisions, they don't know how to use their strengths. So my son's a leader. If he leads people as a class clown away from the teacher, that's not good.
Yeah.
But he's a leader.
Mm,
So if we channel that correctly and say, hey, teacher, if you get him on your side, he now leads people towards you. He's
right.
the one saying, Brandon, pay attention.
Yeah.
We
It's
gotta
good.
let's get this done so we can go do this. Like,
And leadership is
we
hard.
ah,
Well, leadership
so
sucks sometimes,
lonely,
and it's
hard.
lonely. And so I always encourage,
You don't get near enough. You, I mean, be honest, you don't get a lot of recognition sometimes.
yeah,
If you're a good leader, you give a lot.
yeah,
But there's sometimes where you're like, yeah, like you're giving it up, and it's easy sometimes to give up. And then you give up a lot of love for a long time. You start to say, wow, really giving up a lot of
yeah.
credit to everybody and haven't really got any credit for about 10 years now.
There you
But
go, man.
it can hurt. But that's when I have to recenter myself and say, it's never been about me.
Yeah,
Leadership has never been about me. It's been about them. It's been about God's people and kingdom. It's not about me. It's about them. So when it becomes self-centered, it feels less fulfilling.
yeah. And it's very simple for me. That's my core values: love
Yeah,
God, serve others.
I love
It's
it.
not difficult. I mean,
No,
it's not about me. Never will be about me. It's not
yeah,
about my kids. It's not about my wife. I serve. I have a vertical marriage too. Not
yeah,
only along a marriage with my wife, but I'm married to Jesus, and that's
yeah,
never going to change. And the accountability comes from
yeah.
that is difficult,
Mm,
and so it's hard. Leadership is tough,
it is.
but and it can be lonely sometimes.
I
It
know.
could be hard trying to be a dad, trying to figure this out, right? And that's difficult as a 17-year-old trying to figure out how to lead him, getting ready to. I don't do we. Am I supposed to go to colleges with them? Are we doing college visits? Like, how do I? What am I
Do I
telling him to go
force
to?
him to college?
Yeah,
Do I
like
allow him to pick what he wants?
yeah,
Like,
like it's so
do I put him in the
difficult.
military? Yeah,
So difficult. Leading your kids is even
yeah,
difficult. It's lonely
it is.
sometimes. So I always encourage other fathers to get with other fathers.
Yeah, and
Like
that's
encourage
why.
each other, man. Encourage each other because we're all gonna fail. We're all gonna
Yes.
make mistakes. We're all gonna mess up. Our kids are gonna hate us at some point. But as long as we uh, stay true to who we are and
Uh,
stick there in the trenches with them when they fail, and we're there
yeah.
to pick them up, they'll always come home. It's the prodigal son story.
I agree. I love having, mentors that have done it before me, people that'll do it with me, and people that I can show and mentor the
Hmm.
way. So I think it's important. You've been a great friend, and really, really good, because you and I are similar in a lot of ways and different at the same time.
Yeah,
So I think we balance each other out in a lot of ways. And, even if I call you a wuss, you'll choke me out still
that's
and
true.
put me in a chokehold on the side of
I've done it before.
a downtown street in Worcester. But
I've done it before, and I'd do it again.
yeah, and I dare you to try. Turn the camera off. No, I'm just kidding.
Give me a
So,
nub bump,
but
man.
hey, appreciate you.
Thanks,
So
man.
thank you for coming. Like I said, first person in person,
Dude,
second
excited.
only person ever to come twice on the conviction of a leader. So
Hey, nobody can take that title from me.
no, no. Listen, all the listeners out there, if you're listening, I would ask you to turn on notifications, like this podcast, share this podcast. If it's on YouTube, make sure that you follow. I want to make sure that you share this with your friends, family members, coworkers, because Brandon went out of his way. He was very vulnerable today to come and be on this podcast. So I ask you, if this made an impact in you, please share it. Please like it. Let Brandon know. Brandon, how can they connect with you?
Yeah. So Sabrina has all my social media stuff. I
Okay.
can't tell you my social media, but we'll make sure we post it on here. I'll get
Yes.
it all to you. I know it's at Woo Mortgage Guy is my Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm probably on something else too. I don't do all
LinkedIn
that stuff.
maybe, or
LinkedIn. Oh, I'm
okay.
definitely on LinkedIn. So we'll make sure you get all that. I'm
Yep.
sure
We'll
Sabrina's
put it in the
cringing right.
notes.
Sabrina's cringing right now, going, "You don't
Eh,
know this stuff." But
That's okay.
that's why she's great at what she
That's
does, and I
exactly.
fail there. And
I
so
know.
when I'm weak, I find somebody that's better at something than me
Yeah.
to
And
fulfill
I
that.
got a shout out. I haven't done it in a while, but Andy, my podcast producer, is awesome.
Dude,
Like,
he's been
he
great, man,
makes
all day.
this look good. Did he make you? You also got some
Dude,
headshots
got some
today.
headshots, dude. He got rid
So
of my chin fat, like with
yes, yes.
some like sneaky moves with your head. It was amazing,
He
man. All the
always
stuff
says,
he
"I'll
did.
make you look prettier, younger, thinner." He's like, who else can do that?
I thought it was impossible until I got here today. The dude's a stud, man.
And
So
shout out to Adam. He's somebody that's been working with me for about a year. He's a senior in high school. Shout out to Adam for helping out with social media and just kind of being along for the ride.
yeah,
It's
I'm
been a
interested to
blast.
hear his story and how he develops, and got to
Yeah,
talk to him a little bit today about wrestling and all being an athlete
yeah.
and stuff. And so
Excited to see
I
where he
love
goes.
athletes, man.
Me
We're
too,
so
man.
competitive and we always want to be successful. So
So true.
especially a wrestler, man, you don't have a choice. It's
No,
you versus them,
no,
and there's no help. So
I know.
I love that mentality, and I think he's driven, and
He
I'm
is.
excited to see where he goes from here.
It's good. I'm excited. So thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody else, for listening. Appreciate you. Thank you for listening to The Conviction of a Leader.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you. Cool. Good.